Hey, so I see you have your hand up in the Zoom. So if you have a question, if you want to stick it in the chat, or maybe you just accidentally raised your hand. I don't know. But you may want to check on that. All right. So now I just gotta find it. Come on. Oh, I got you. Hi, Lisa. Awesome. Hey, there it is. Okay. I found it. Okay. We'll see how we go here. I got my Facebook feed going and the Zoom link going. And we are about to get started. There we go. Okay, so yay, day 2. I'm so excited to be back here and sharing these truths with you. And just my heart is just to really encourage you, help you see that there's some different ways of looking at things so that relationship stuff and creating connections in your families don't have to be so difficult. They don't have to be complicated. And it's really possible for us to have rich, rewarding, valuable relationships with each other's. And there's people that have gone before us and done the research and to figure out what are the tricks that actually work. So tonight we're really going to start digging into some of those tips and tricks. Of course, a little bit of review. Yesterday we talked about why you don't already have the relationship that you want, and we discovered that it's just because you didn't know what business you were in, right? What business is that? Well, we talked about the relationship management business, and I'm going to be referring to that several more times throughout this week, because I want you to keep remembering that that's what you're doing, that you are leading in a business with the people around you. Hi, John. Hi, Abby. I'm so delighted to have you. Make sure you leave a comment so that if you didn't already, if you're watching on Facebook, let me know. Sometimes Facebook doesn't really do a good job of tracking who's here and who isn't. And I want to say hi to you, and I want to know that you're participating and stuff. I just want to show you some love. So let me know you're here. So we talked about the relationship management business, and then we discussed, are you in trouble, and a way to discover that. And then we talked about, what does our relationship checkup look like? How many of you actually looked over it, gave yourself a star review, figured out how many stars you have in those different areas? I'd love to hear whether or not you actually took action on the assignments. That's going to be the best indicator for whether or not you're going to get results. Is, do you take action on the things that you learn? If you're just going to listen to a bunch of knowledge, the honest truth is you're wasting your time. You're wasting your time if you're going to sit and listen and not do anything with it, right? So we want to be taking action and making progress. And part of that is doing those assignments at the end of the day. So how many of you did the review? And what did you identify as the number one area for you to work on? I think there's this, let me back up. I think that there is a tendency to, when we receive lots of new information, that we want to take and absorb it all and do it all right away. And that we don't, and feeling like we don't really get the full value out of what we're doing if we don't implement it to its fullest potential at that time. But that's not actually how it works. If you take action on one thing, you can trust the Holy Spirit that when it's time to take the next step, he's going to remind you what that is, and he's going to move you forward. In fact, so many times with coaching and work that I've done with other mentors and things like that, I'll get a fire hydrant full of information right in the face, and I feel like I have the capacity to take this little bitty baby step and like, oh no, I'm going to forget all the other things. Well, I just want to encourage you. I've been in this long enough to know that God brings that information back around. So you take action on things you feel led to take action on the things that he's putting on your heart and on your spirit. And you can trust that the other ones he'll bring back around when the time is right. All right. So I have a request though for you starting out tonight. For the remainder of this week, I want to invite you to consider one specific relationship to keep in your mind. Now, don't get all bogged down on which one, or am I picking the right one, or do I need to pick the hardest one or the easiest one, or the one that nobody really knows about, or like, don't get all bogged down. I promise you, just whichever one comes to mind, some relationship that comes to mind, that's the one. Don't question it. Don't, just trust that the Holy Spirit can guide you. Okay. Because here's the thing, when we think about concepts and generalities, a lot of time it won't land in a helpful way. But if you can process it through a particular relationship, then you'll be able to see nuances of how this information can directly impact that particular relationship. Now, there will be other parts that you're like, this doesn't apply. Like, I know one of my clients is wanting to work on a relationship with her 4-year-old. That doesn't mean that, some of this stuff, she's going to be like, yeah, that I don't even know how that fits in with that particular person in my family. But again, trust the Holy Spirit. You can set it aside for that one. You're going to have this content for as long as we can keep it on the platforms and everything. And so you can come back around and look at it again with a different relationship in mind anytime you want to. Okay. But to get the most value, pick a relationship, keep it in your brain, keep the same one all week long. And that's how you're going to get the most value out of this. Okay. All right. Today, we are talking about the top 2 marketing secrets for family success. I bet you never thought that you would be talking about marketing secrets as it relates to your family, right? So for some of you are business owners and some of you know all about marketing. I have to say, when I kind of accidentally got into business. I had a business for quite a while before I realized that I was in the business. I just wanted to help people, and I was helping people, and I was like, oh, okay, well, then I guess I probably ought to, like, I can't do this for nothing. And so I need to somehow be compensated. So I started getting people to pay me. And along the way, somewhere I went to a conference and somebody said, how many of you are entrepreneurs? And I had my hand down and I was with a friend and she was like, why isn't your hand up? I'm like, because I don't have a business. She's like, you're an entrepreneur. Put up your hands. And I was like, oh, I'm a business owner and I have, sometimes things just don't click when they should. So for me, I had a lot of business things that I did not know when I started out. So the first thing, if we're going to talk about the 2 top marketing secrets for families for success, I want to just quickly review what is marketing. What is marketing? So for the purposes of our processes today, marketing is the process of getting people interested in your company's product or service. That's what they're doing. It has 3 main goals: to capture attention, to educate prospects, and to convert them. So capture attention, educate prospects, and convert them. It's that attention getting, like, we want to let you know we're here and let you know that we have something useful for you. A lot of people group sales and marketing together, and they definitely overlap some, but they are very different. Sales is the actual act of that leads to selling goods and services, right? But marketing is that process of getting them interested in the first place. In business, marketing is getting people to look at your stuff, and sales is turning that into money, essentially. Okay. So when we're looking at marketing in the family, I want you to think about that idea of capturing attention, educating prospects, and conversion. Okay. And we're not converting through manipulation or force or pressure. We're looking to present material in an interesting way. Okay. So the question that comes up often is, will it work for anybody? Well, this is for anybody. Anybody can take these skills and make this work. So a great story to illustrate this is when I visited Jerusalem a number of years ago with my husband, and we walked down in the old city on David Street, where they sell everything. The vendors, their only goal is to get me to buy stuff, right? So they would say, we have shirts and we have jewelry, and you should come and look in my shop. And I murder their accent, but it was very heavy. They were focused primarily on turning stuff into money, right? But first they had to get my attention. So they would come out and they would have compelling things that would grab my attention. Sometimes there were things like, oh, like, you're American. We have a shirt that says Coca-Cola in Hebrew. All right. So they're like noticing the things that would grab my attention. Or sometimes they would be shocking, like, oh, you're so beautiful, worth at least 10 camels. Come over. We want to show you things like, wait, what? 10 camel? 100? What? Camels? What? So it would be an attention getter, right? But their whole goal was to get us to like look over there at their stuff, and then they would invite us into their shop, not into their shirt. That's wrong. The truth is that some vendors were better than others at this skill, but pretty much anybody that set up a shop on that street, if they used those different techniques, they could be successful. So in that context, the vendors were trying to pull the people in, right? Pull the people into the shop. First, I got to convince you to get into my store. Then I need to show you what I have and see whether or not you'll buy it. So the good news is that your family, which is what we're talking about this week, the family makeover, your family is God ordained. They're already in your shop. You don't have to talk them into getting in there. You don't have to wonder if they're supposed to be there. They are supposed to be there on purpose. The bad news is they don't have to buy your stuff, whether they're in your shop or not. And so it's encouraging that one of those steps is already done for you, but the other one is still something we have to work on. So how do we, I want to first, before we get into this, I want to first talk about what it looks like in a family when we don't operate with good marketing. So the typical way is that we want a specific outcome, right? And we aren't getting it. And so we don't like what we see. What do we try? We're going to get harsh. We're going to impose the rules. We're going to be heard. We're going to force time together. We're going to insist on them communicating, right? And we're going to require more chores. Or we might avoid or distract or disengage. And what do we get? People are like disengaged or distracted or not following the directions or don't relate or all these different like resistance moves. And then we're like, what? I don't understand. Why aren't you buying? Like, I'm here. I care about you. And the reason I'm being so harsh is because I care so much, right? That never convinced anybody, right? Think about this in a business perspective, okay? So I came up with this idea. Pretend like you're at a grocery store and a company acted this way. Say you go into the grocery store and they're like, excuse me, since our average customer spends about $50, we've just decided that to make everything fair, anyone who comes into our store has to spend $50. We have this new rule. And also, if you come into our store, one of those items needs to be an apple because we have an overabundance of them right now. And so in order to keep our store running really well, you're going to need to buy an apple. Also, we want to be your friend. And so in order to make sure that we're becoming your friends, we've assigned another clerk to your side at all times, and they will follow you around next to you in the store to interact with you so that you have a great experience connecting with us in our company. We want to make sure you have a great experience. So there's this intentional connection as you walk around and peruse the items, right? Also, we do have the candy aisle, but we don't really think it's a good thing for you. And so if you go down there, we will not be helping with that. Like, we won't ask any question. We won't answer any questions about that. I don't want to hear about it. If you go down that aisle, you go down alone. When you get off the aisle, we can help you fix your problems after you get off the candy aisle, right? Like all these things. Oh my goodness. Would you ever shop there? No, nobody would ever shop. Be like, I don't know what you're smoking, but I'm not having it. We would not shop there. We wouldn't interact with those people. We would think it was ridiculous. And yet we put these kinds of conditions on our families all the time. All the time, don't we? We're like, okay, in order to be fair, everybody needs a specific amount of time together, and I need to be able to invest equally in everyone at the same time. Also, I have a weakness, and since I have a weakness, all of you are going to need to really compensate for that, right? Or you go make your mistake. I have it readily available in my house, but I'm telling you that it's not available and you can't do that. And if you do, I'm not going to really help you with that, right? There's those kinds of attitudes. There's the idea of, oh, you're not fully connected. Let's just force some time together. That's going to really be great, right? It doesn't lead to good results. So I want you to really get this in your mind, because I want you to see how ridiculous it is that we expect that these kinds of tactics are going to produce good results in relationships. I just want you guys to know I keep looking over here because that's where my news feed is for the Facebook. Okay. I'm not watching the Braves game, which isn't even on yet, but like, just want you to know I keep looking over here for a different reason. Okay. So anyway, people would revolt if that's the way we behaved in a company, and not surprisingly, people revolt in our families too. So the goal, what is the goal if that's not what we want? The goal is to parent or behave, or however you want to, like, if you're not doing this for parenting and you're doing it for a different relationship, just go with it. Parent persuasively so your family wants what you are offering. So your family wants what you're offering. Okay, that's really the goal. This makes me think of a funny story with my son, James, who really, I wanted him to like green beans. I wanted our whole family to get to eating green beans. And I started looking for ways to make green beans so that they would be super yummy. And one day I discovered just how much we had persuaded them that they wanted green beans. The day that we were sitting at the table and we were having dessert and everybody was eating cake, and my son James says, Mama, can I please have more green beans? And we had to say, a little bit tongue in cheek, but it was like, I'm sorry, you must finish your cake before you can have more vegetables. And like, Goal accomplished, right? So that's what we're looking for. So the first key to be able to do this, wow, we got to speed through this. Okay. The first key is the know, like, and trust factor. The know, like, and trust factor. Okay. This is a marketing strategy that people use in business to help make connections and sales and want to build connections with the people around them in companies. So let's talk about what this looks like in a family relationship. Your kids are going to be more likely to be persuaded towards what you're offering if you have built this know, like, and trust factor. So what is this? First of all, it's going to go down here, the know. The know. And I'm going to represent that with a diamond. Let's see, where do I want to put my, oh, you know what? I'm going to have to bring my thing up. Let's see. I'll leave it there for just a second. All right. So the know, you can remember like really high value and really knowing the quality, and you want to create quality, both you want them to know you and the quality that you have, and you want to know them and their quality. So this includes, and I've written this on your handout, high quality, excellent service. You over deliver. You are personal, you're interactive, you share details and thoughts and weaknesses, you share your why, but also you know them. So this idea like, like Joanna Gaines and Fixer Upper, right? They have an ideal marketing client, right? They know their client so clearly that they just know that the things that they put out will be purchased by that person because they just know that person so well. Like, who is their ideal client? I want you to just think about, who does she market to? It's going to be somebody in like their 30s to 40s. She's married, probably has kids, living in rural America. They're middle class. They're somebody that wants things to look nice, but maybe doesn't have tons and tons of money to spend on stuff, but has a little bit of a minimalistic idea of how their home looks. Maybe they want things to feel hospitable. They have definitely a little bit of want things to feel connected to outside and greenery, a little bit of a green thumb, so to speak. Maybe they like to garden, some of those things. I'm sure she has a whole host of who her ideal client is, but they know the value of that person so well, and then they communicate that they have a high value as well. All right. So that's the know part. All right. So the like part. All right. Like. This is a little bit easy. Like, do you like them? Do you like them? The appreciation, the respect, are you approachable? Are you likable? Do you have a sense of humor? Do you take yourself too seriously? Or are you willing to laugh at yourself a little bit? Is there a comfortable exchange? So I illustrate this one with my Mad Libs, right? Because I think of this as a way that we create like in our family. All right, I got to move it up. I promise I'll fill in that other gap up there. All right. I'll tell you what it is. There, can you see it? Yeah, okay. So this reminds me of this because when we were trying to figure out how to get our kids to be a little bit more organized and orderly at dinner times, best thing I ever did was I downloaded the Mad Libs app, and sometimes we would do Mad Libs while we were at dinner. And as a result, it became kind of a family tradition that when we're a little bit bored, and or we're waiting for something, or just at dinner time we're wanting to have a good laugh, I will pull out the Mad Libs app and do it. At first I thought, oh, I'm going to be really slick, I'm actually teaching them parts of speech at the same time. But really it's just become a fun family tradition. It's a way of increasing the like factor in our family. Okay. So then the next one is trust, right? The know, like, trust. Okay. Trust. And this one, I like thinking of a cozy blanket. See that? That person's got this big, huge, cozy blanket all wrapped around them, right? So trust looks like the person feels safe. There's a confidence that they're going to be okay. There's consistency. There's warmth and immediacy and follow through. There's accessibility and transparency, but there's this intimacy that's created, right? So not only do we exhibit levels of trust, but we learn about the other person and what they need to experience that trust. What are they looking for? What are they longing for? Those kinds of things. So in your relationship management business, which of these qualities do you think you have figured out? That's the question. And maybe not right now, but as you do your homework, maybe make a side note to come back and on your homework, on your worksheet, these little descriptors, it'd be good to just underline the ones that you think like, actually, I'm going to celebrate that I do a great job of that. I actually think I thrive in that area. And then the other ones that you feel a little bit like, ooh, that one needs a little work, give it a circle. Okay. It's okay to celebrate the parts that are working right. And we do want to acknowledge like which ones are showing up like, ooh, I could touch up on that one some. So that I don't have them written up here, but that's those words that are right underneath these blanks that you can circle. And if you don't have the worksheets, look in your email. And if you aren't getting the emails, then sign up for the email in one of the other many posts that are online. Okay, so know, like, and trust. I do want to address, is this a biblical concept really quickly, because it's really important to me that we always go back and say, does this line up with the word of God? Does it line up with his word? So one really obvious example is that God built know, like, and trust with Moses and with the Israelites. So think about when he was doing this with Moses, the know part, like his excellence and knowing who Moses was. He showed up to him in a burning bush, right? He communicated his holiness and had like a very elite, unusual way of connecting with Moses at that time, right? He also he told him who he was. I'm the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So that Moses would know who he was talking to, right? He communicated the like part when he said, I've seen the affliction. He's relating to him. It's like, I know that these people really have a problem. I'm acknowledging that. And I'm going to send you to Pharaoh and I'm going to bring the children out of Egypt. Like, hey, okay, that sounds good. We like that. Then the trust part, he said, and I will be with you. He said, I will be with you. And then he showed up and he did it. He was trustworthy. He was consistent. The Israelites, he did the same pattern. He said, he told Moses to tell them that the I am has sent me to you. And he knew who the Israelites were. There's another verse that says he heard them, he saw them, he heard their groanings, and he knew when he was feeling compelled to pull them out of Egypt. He was aware. He knew what was going on. And he told them that. He said, I know, I see you. Then he freed them from Egypt, right? And slavery. He was pouncing on their gods during the plagues and he was protecting them. right? Then the trust, how did he do that? How did he show up and prove himself trustworthy? Tons of ways, right? He brought on all the plagues, but he protected them while the Egyptians were getting slaughtered by all kinds of plagues. He parted the Red Sea. He showed himself worthy when he rained down manna from heaven to feed them. He showed himself trustworthy when he created a cloud by day and a fire by night for them to walk and know when to go and when to stop. All the time, he was always proving, you can trust me. You can count on me. I'm consistent. I'm showing up again. I'm keeping my promise. I do want to point out that notice that in all of this, God doesn't force obedience. He didn't turn around and say, you have to do it. He didn't. He gave them a choice. So can this really work for us in relationships? And my answer is yes. I'm going to tell you, though, it's a little scary. It's a little scary because we release the need to force somebody to do something else. Much like when several years ago, when I was really struggling with, there was this trip I wanted to go on, and I had never been anywhere so like by myself. The trip was to Hawaii. I had been invited to go to Hawaii. Someone was interested in sponsoring me for half the fee, but it was still like $3,500 to go on this trip. And I wanted to go. We didn't have the money. And I wanted to go so bad. Like, oh my goodness, somebody else is offering this is great. And I just wanted to put it on the credit card. But the trouble is that at the time in our life that it was at, we didn't have the money to pay the credit card. Like if I had put $3,500 on the credit card, we didn't have the money next month to pay for it. It was twice as much as my husband was making in a month to put on the credit card. It's another story for another day, but it was a lot of money for us at the time. And so it should have been an obvious, like, no, you can't, no. And I came to Brandon wrestling with this because I had guilt about just putting it on there and telling him later. So I was like, so I really want to go on this trip, and can't you like give me the okay? Now, the obvious answer for most people would be what? No, no, you can't do it. You can't put it on there. Oh, but that man was wise. Do you know why? Because if he had told me, if I came to him for a particular reason, if he had told me no, what was I going to do? I was going to be mad at him. I was going to be mad at him for telling me no, that I couldn't have what I wanted, even though in my heart, I knew that that's not really the best thing anyway. If he had told me yes, what would I have done? I would have gone. I would have gotten excited. But then he's also on the hook. He's partially responsible for this financial decision that we've made. And now I don't have to bear the responsibility alone. Now he is also complacent in this choice, and we're in it together. So by him saying yes, I've absolved myself of part of the responsibility of making the decision. I get to put some of the blame on him. And don't you know, I have done it before. Like we paid for this, and he gets upset and like, well, you agreed to it. How many times have you ever done that? So the beauty of freeing people from forcing them into a choice. This is what Brandon said. He said, I hated it the moment he said, you have always been free to do whatever you wanted to do. That is a scary statement to say, isn't it? Because in that moment, he's releasing me to do it if that's what I choose. But he's not going to take on the responsibility. He's put the responsibility back on me. He's not taking it on. He's like, no, you make that choice. And I couldn't do it. I couldn't live with myself. I couldn't say, I'm just gonna I'm just going to sink my family in debt that way. In the end, God was amazing. He provided the money another way. I got to go on the trip anyway, but I never would have gone. I never would have seen the Lord provide if he had said yes or if he had said no. Either way, God wouldn't have had to show up and show himself strong. And we got this great testimony out of it. And I learned a huge lesson about how many times I go to my husband and ask him for permission for something. But in reality, what I'm doing is trying to rope him into the responsibility of the results. Now, that was a super sidetrack, but somebody needs to hear it because it happens so often. It happens so often that we do that. So people are free to choose. And when we let them, even though it can be a little bit scary, a lot of times they end up learning the lesson that they need to learn. All right, we got to crack through here. All right, here we go. I lost my place because I jumped off track. Okay, so the idea here is if you're a parent or you're someone else who's communicating, you have a customer. You're training the other person how you want things to go. The Bible talks a little bit about that, doesn't it? In Proverbs 22:6, it says, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. It doesn't say train him up in the way he should go and force him to do it. And it doesn't say let him peruse all the options and hopefully he'll figure it out, right? Eventually he'll pick the right path. No, he says train them up, and then when they're old, they will not depart from it. So your ultimate objective is for them to be completely sold on what you're training them, so that when they get to the place where it's time to make the decision, it will seem obvious that this is the way we're supposed to go. It will be compelling. So how do others market their products in such a way that makes the customer buy it right off the shelf? They know they've built this. How do they do this strategically through the information that they communicate to their customers? Before I get to this, I want you to say, like, just with the credit card thing, there's no guarantees. I could have put it on the credit card. I might have. When we give other people the freedom to choose, it includes them choosing the thing that we don't want them to choose. Okay. So, but we're out there for a bigger goal than just that 1 second, that one moment. We're out there that we're doing this for a greater purpose, right? So listen to some of these stats. 70% of parents say they struggle to communicate with their kids. 82% of those parents feel like their child is intentionally avoiding them. 40% of parents don't have conversations that last longer than 10 minutes with their kids. And 68% of the parents say they are distracted on their phones during the interaction with their kids. So there's all this dysfunctional communication going on, and we wonder why they aren't getting the message well. So I'm going to give you a key framework. That's the thing. You need a framework for communication in order to communicate this stuff properly and successfully. Okay, you need a framework that does not involve being distracted on your phone, just to be clear. Okay, you definitely want to know your customer. You want to know what the likable result is that they're trying to get. What's the process to get that result? The trusted and consistent process. But in order to do that, you need to understand how to market your ideas. I got my idea. I need to communicate it to them. Here's the framework. Okay. In order to show you the framework, though, I'm going to give you a story, so that I'm going to tell you the story first, and then I'll help you see the pieces. Okay. I think it'll be easier for you to see that way. Okay. Here's the story. Once upon a time, long time ago, I used to be terrified of the dark. When I was 6, I had a kind of a brief traumatic experience with a scary show, It wasn't even that big of a deal, but it was in my mind. And I became afraid of the dark. I'm not anymore, but from the time I was about 6 until the time I was like 23. So this is like I was already married and had kids. Okay. I'm not even kidding. I could not sleep without a light on. I couldn't walk outside in the dark without experiencing a lot of anxiety. I even after I was married and the bathroom was directly attached to the master bedroom, I hated getting up and going to the bathroom in the dark. I didn't want to do it. So, but now I'm not scared anymore. Would you like to learn how I conquered that fear in one night? Okay, so I discovered that night that God had more power than the devil. And if I acted like it, then the fear had to flee. That's it in a nutshell. And in that moment when I realized God really does have more power than the devil and he has to leave, I suddenly felt more powerful. I felt free from fear. I felt excited about feeling close to God. It was amazing. And so here's how I did that. First, I had been memorizing Psalm 27, which is a great psalm about not being afraid. The first couple of verses talk about the Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? So I've been memorizing that. But second, that one night when I was particularly scared when I was in my 20s, and I was so done with the devil just messing with me every single night. I woke up Brandon and we together were walking around in our PJs, holding hands in the middle of the night in the bedroom and in the bathroom, quoting Psalm 27, praying and asking God for help, resisting the devil and believing that he had to flee, because the Bible says if we resist the devil, then he will flee, which is a promise, right? And then I believed it was done. And I went back to bed. And that night, something broke. I can't really explain it, but I know that something broke that night in the spiritual realm. Like, I think it was the first night that I had attributed God actually had more power than the devil. Other times I would say, oh, God, please take this away. But there was this, without meaning to, there was this doubt that he wouldn't. Could he? Would he? Did he want to? And got to the place where I was like, no, I'm not giving the devil more power than God has in this situation. And it had to go. And I was never afraid again. In fact, sometimes I enjoy walking in the dark. I imagine sometimes when I'm walking in the dark that I am the light of Christ illuminating the darkness around me, that I don't need other light out there because I am a light in the darkness. And I don't need anything else because I'm so full of the light of Jesus. And so there isn't any other light necessary. Isn't that exciting? Okay, so based on that story, how many of you would be inspired to at least try some of these ideas that I mentioned if you had a fear of the dark? I bet some of you would at least be willing to be like, there's some, like, I'm going to take some notes and try some of these things, right? It's an inspiring way of communicating what I am wanting to show somebody else is possible, the step-by-step methods. I use this framework to communicate the thing I want you to learn how to do, which is I want you to learn how to not be afraid of the dark, right? So I communicated it. So first, based on know, like, and trust, who would I be talking to if I was sharing this story? Well, the no part, I'd be talking to somebody who was scared of the dark or maybe feelings of fear, right? I know that that's a struggle that they have. The like part, what would they like? Or how can I communicate the like side? Well, they want to stop being scared. They want to quit waking. I want them to quit waking me up in the night. That would be a like part for me, right? We would all like them to stop screaming in the middle of the night. That would be nice. Things like that. So then the trust part, well, the trusted process is the Bible and God and belief and scripture memory and resisting the devil. And here's the mistake we make. Instead of doing the framework that I'm about to show you, we try to communicate this to the people. We're like, oh, you're feeling scared? Well, you just need to stop and also quit waking me up in the middle of the night. And for heaven's sakes, please stop screaming. And the way you don't know how to do that. Okay, well, read your Bible and pray and resist the devil and it'll go away. That's what we do. We get like, we think we can communicate these pieces to the person and that's going to solve it. But they aren't receiving it in a way that feels attractive or feels compelling. And so they are going to buy what you're offering. And remember, we're all about persuading people so that they want what we're offering. It's not just about getting the information out in the fastest way possible so that we can feel good about ourselves that we communicated all the right pieces, which is sometimes what we do. Okay, so here's what works. Enough. We're going to get to the actual thing. Number one, when you're communicating to other people, the first thing you tell them is how you learned it or earned it. Okay, so learn or earn is what goes here. Learned it. Ooh, my paper is jumping around. Learned it or earned it. Now, what does that mean? That means the thing that you're about to tell somebody, you either learned it in a book or knowledge or watched a YouTube video or something like that, or you earned it, meaning you learned it the hard way. Like you experienced it, you have life evidence that this is how this works. Okay, learned it could also be you were a smart person and learned it from somebody else's mistake rather than having to make your own. That's another learned it thing. Okay, so I had a personal experience with a fear of the dark. So, and I told you that at the beginning, like this is my own personal experience. So it gives credibility to what I'm about to say. Like I went through this experience. Okay. The second thing is we communicate a strategy. And this is what people do in business if they're really trying to communicate why somebody needs their product. Okay. So they first say how I learned or earned my right to tell you about this. Then they have a strategy. The strategy is like casting the vision, the desired outcome. How is it going to feel? So the strategy would be, I have this, like, I overcame a fear of the dark through a process of believing God in a new way that I hadn't experienced before. Okay, that would be the strategy, the overall vision. And the result was, how did I feel? Amazing, excited, right? So then the third one is you communicate the tactics. The tactics. That's those details, like memorize Psalm 27, believe that God is more powerful than the devil, resist the devil in that belief and he will flee. Believe that he's going, if you resist him, he will flee. Believe it and it happens. You could take it to the bank. Get up and walk around. Show the devil who's boss, right? These are the tactics that I used. Okay. And then case studies. So case studies is like the evidence that this has worked for other people. Now, all I did was point out how it worked for me, right? I just kind of re-emphasized this worked for me, it can work for you. But you can also, in businesses, we have testimonials, we have other people that we can say, it worked for this client, it worked for this customer. We have all this evidence, right? That's where you get Amazon reviews from, those kinds of things. So there's this framework that businesses use to communicate why somebody, like what somebody communicate the need for their product, what it's going to do for them, and the fact that it has worked for other people so it can work for them. Now, here's what happens in business, and here's what's going to happen in a family. Oh my goodness, this is a lot of trouble. I am not coming up with all this hullabaloo for one conversation. That is way too much work. And guess what? People in business say the same thing, and guess what? They don't sell their stuff. So I'm just inviting you to give it a try. The other thing is, some of us do this already and we don't realize it. So think about this. Dad comes in and says, look, I'm in charge here. He earned it, right? I'm the leader. I earned my right to talk to you about this. We are going to clean up the kitchen. That's the vision and the strategy here. You're washing the dishes. And if you don't like it, you can have a spanking like your brother did, right? Like, oh, case studies of people who did not follow the directions, right? Isn't that a common way that somebody, like that a parent who thinks they're in charge and wants to maintain control, they would communicate that way? I'm in charge, clean up the living room, start with the books. If you don't like it, I'll give you an extra job. Earned it, strategy, tactic, case study. We actually do this and don't realize it. But then when we like really want to communicate something meaningful to somebody, we'll be like, I just like, could you just do it? Like, what? You didn't put any effort in that whatsoever. So it's important that we do this. I got to skip through some stuff so we get to the end here. Okay. Okay. I think we've got time for this part. So that's the top one was about the framework, right? So is the framework biblical? That's the question to ask. We asked the question about the no like trust factor. Is it biblical? Is this framework biblical? So I want you to see a great example of this. Okay. Again, let's go back to the Israelites where it says in Deuteronomy verses 6:4-25. I'm not going to read the whole thing, just the verse, a couple of verses. It says, when your son asks you in time to come, what is the meaning of the testimonies and the statutes and the rules that the Lord your God has commanded you? Then you shall say to your son, we were Pharaoh's slaves in Egypt, and the Lord brought us out of Egypt with a mighty hand, and the Lord showed us signs and wonders and great and grievous against Egypt and against Pharaoh and all his house before our eyes. Do you hear, like when somebody else asks you, here's what you say, how we learned it? Do you hear that? Tell them, this is what God did. We were slaves in Egypt and God brought us through. All right, then listen to this. And he brought us out from there so that he might bring us in and give us the land that he swore to give our fathers. And the Lord commanded us to do all the statutes, to fear the Lord our God, for our good always, that he might preserve us alive as we are to this day. And it will be righteousness for us if we are careful to do all this commandment before the Lord our God as he has commanded us. Strategy. Like, hey, this is how to be blessed. This is like, God wants to bless us. Here's how to do it. Here's the strategy. Okay, so that was in chapter 6. Now I'm not going to read the rest because chapters 7-25 of Deuteronomy are the tactics. It's this law and that law and like do these things. And let me tell you, it's not a big pile of rules. It's God saying, this is how your life will go well. I'm telling you, if you want the results, this is how to get them. It's not rules and regulations. It's best practices and recommendations. I could go on for hours about this, but the Bible is not a book about rules and regulations. It's about a king and a kingdom It's a king, God, and his kingdom, and how he is populating his kingdom, and the instructions for the best practices for the operations of his kingdom. In a lot of ways, the Bible is a business book. Read it again. See what you think. So then, all right, so there's the tactics, but just in case studies is at the end of the scripture, God gives the picture of two people. Here's the person that does it, and here's the person that doesn't. And it's Deuteronomy 28, I think it is, that talks about the person that obeys will be blessed and the person who doesn't will be cursed. And he gives very specific things of what will be blessed and what will be cursed. And then he says, you have seen all that God did for before you. Here's what happened before. Here's the examples of others choosing, not being forced, choosing. And then in that area, he says, I urge you to choose life. See that I have put before you life and death, blessing and cursing. Choose life that you and your sons may live. And an encouragement that God goes before us. So is it biblical? Absolutely. And there's plenty of other places in the Bible where this pattern is evident. You could have a great time digging into where do you see these business strategies in the stories of the Bible. It is amazing. Like it will, you know how you learn something new and you go look for it all through the Bible and you're like, oh my goodness, it's everywhere. And then you learn something else new. Is like, you can look all through, oh my goodness, it's everywhere. This is one of them, that the Bible has this ability to help you in communication strategies. So here's your assignment for tonight. Okay. What is one thing that you can do today or tomorrow to build your know, like, and trust? Look at your circled items. So the things on this page that you circled, pick one. Remember I said at the beginning, just pick one thing to focus on and don't mull it over. Just like, which one are you drawn to first? It'll be okay. You can't pick the wrong one here. All right. And see what you can do to just take one simple action in the next 24 hours to build one of those know, like, and trust factors. Okay. And then the second little assignment, which are on the back of, or page 2 of your assignment, choose a topic that you wish to discuss with somebody else. Practice creating the 4-step framework. Okay. You don't even have to deliver the conversation if you don't want to. I just want you to practice putting one together that is well crafted. Listen, if what you're already doing is working in your conversations and in building that know, like, and trust, and you're having good communication, don't change it. Don't change something if it's not broken. But if you are struggling with communication, or you're trying to help others understand, and I'm telling you, this will work for trying to get along with the elderly person, and it will work for trying to get along with the toddler. It might be a little bit different languaging, but it's still this process, right? It can help you. It can help you. And of course, at first, it's going to be a little bit of a hassle to put this together because it's something new, but it won't be a hassle for long, because I guarantee you, if you start to practice this, then in your conversations, you'll start to use it, and you'll start to recognize the fact that you're just doing it like no big deal. All right. So those are my top 2 marketing secrets to build family success, to change your family dynamics, to increase your ability to connect with each other. Tomorrow, we are talking about climbing the invisible ladder of success. Okay. Nope. Relationship success. Not just success, but relationship success. We get it from business and climbing a ladder there. It's not the ladder of success. It's a little bit different, but we will be doing that tomorrow. And it's at 3. Tomorrow's live will be at 3 again, because I have a study to do. So that's all for tonight. Any questions or comments? Or I always tell people, any questions, comments, or snide remarks? That's what I say. Always up for snide remarks. Brandon walked in tonight and was like, he looked at my notes on my desk. He hasn't actually looked at any of my notes. He leans down. He's like, this is all wrong. I was like, what? You're no help. Go away. He's just messing with me. So always up for snide remarks. You're so welcome. Oh, you're good. You're welcome, Tony and Lisa. Glad you could join. Joan. Thank you. Yes, you're welcome. Very welcome. All right. Well, I will see you tomorrow. Do your assignment. Take the action. Good night.